In this video, we're going to cover Spring REST exception handling. Remember our problem in the previous videos, right? We would pass over a bad student ID of 999, and then we get this ugly exception, right? So 500 internal server error. We found out what the root cause was. It was an index out of bounds. What we really want is this. We want to handle the exception and return the error as JSON. So we'd like to have a nice little JSON message comes back that has the details on the error or the exception. So we'd like to give the actual status code of 404, the actual error message, and then maybe a timestamp as far as when this given error occurred. And that's what we really want. And that's what we'll actually build out in this video. Alrighty, so let's kind of look at the big picture here. So we have this REST client, the REST service. We make a call for API students 999. That's the bad data. It makes it into our REST service, throws an exception, and then we like to actually handle for that exception. And then instead of that ugly HTML page, we'll send back the exception error message as JSON. Alrighty, so let's look at the actual development process here. So the first thing we're going to do is create a custom error response class. Then we'll actually create a custom exception class. Next, we'll go through and update our REST service to throw the exception if the student is not found. And then finally, we'll add an exception handler method using Spring's @exceptionHandler annotation. Starting with step one, we're going to create this custom error response class. So this class will actually be sent back to the client as JSON. We'll define this as a Java class or a POJO, and we'll just keep track of 3 fields here. We'll keep track of the status, the message, and the timestamp. And then Jackson will actually be responsible for converting this POJO over to JSON, going back to the client. Now, with this POJO here, you can define any custom fields that you want to track. Here, I'm just keeping it simple by having these 3 fields of status, message, and timestamp, but you can easily extend it and easily add your own custom fields because just a regular Java POJO. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at the coding here. So we'll have this student error response.java. We'll create this class. We'll define those 3 fields for status, message, and timestamp. And then from there, we simply create our constructors and also our getters and setters. And that's it. It's just a regular basic Java POJO or Java class here. And again, in the bottom right, you'll see the little JSON portion here. Jackson will actually convert this POJO over to the appropriate JSON when we send it back. And that's it for this example. Now, moving ahead to step 2 as far as creating our custom student exception. So this custom student exception will be used by our REST service. So in our code, if we can't find the student, then we'll actually throw this exception. So we need to define a custom student exception class. We'll actually call it student not found exception. All right, so let's go ahead and define our custom student exception. So our class extends runtime exception, and then we define a constructor here. And this constructor will basically make use of super. So just call the super class constructor for the message. And that's it. So since we're using inheritance, there's not much code we have to write here for this given exception. And this is a very common approach for creating exceptions.